John Arthur Johnson was born on March 31st, 1878 in Galveston, Texas to Henry and Tina Johnson. He was the first African-American boxer to win the heavyweight championship of the world. They called him the Galveston Giant. After a few years of school, Johnson went to work to help support his family. A good portion of his childhood was spent working on boats and sculleries in Galveston. By the age of 16, Johnson was on his own, traveling to New York and later Boston before returning to his hometown. Johnson's first fight came around this time, and he quickly jumped at the chance and won the fight. This win gave him the confidence he needed to start his career as a prize fighter. Racial discrimination had a strain on Johnson's early boxing career. His first debut as a professional boxer was actually on November 1st, 1898, but it was not until his great victory that he started to gain more opportunity to show off his skill to the world. White supremacists were angered by this unexpected win, so they looked for what they called a Great White Hope that would reclaim the title. On July 4th, 1910, in front of 20,000 people in Reno, Nevada, Johnson came out victorious in the fight against the former champion, James J. Jeffries. This fight would be called the Fight of the Century. The outcome of the fight triggered race riots all across America. Johnson's victory over Jeffries had dashed white dreams of finding a great white hope. Race riots erupted in New York, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Atlanta, St. Louis, Little Rock, and Houston. At least 20 people were killed across the U.S. and hundreds more were injured. Blacks, on the other hand, celebrated Johnson's great victory as a victory for racial advancement. Johnson was criticized by the press and even by some African Americans for marrying white women and for his flamboyant lifestyle. Johnson had 3 wives, all of whom were white women. His interracial marriages caused great controversy. Johnson's first wife, Etta Terry Duryea, suffered from severe depression and committed suicide. His second wife was Lucille Cameron. She later divorced him due to infidelity. His third wife, Irene Panay, was his last, and they remained together until his death. In 1912, Johnson was convicted of violating the Mann Act by transporting his second wife-to-be, Lucille, across state lines before their marriage. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison, but Johnson skipped bail and left the country. He disguised himself as a member of a black baseball team and fled to Canada and later to Europe and was a fugitive for 7 years. On April 5, 1915, Johnson lost his title to Jess Willard in Havana, Cuba. And on July 20, 1920, Johnson surrendered to U.S. Marshals and was sent to the United States Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas. While incarcerated, Johnson modified the wrench and patented his improvements in 1922. He was released from prison on July 9, 1921. After his release, Johnson continued fighting. He fought professionally until 1928 at age 50. Johnson had a total of 77 wins and only 13 losses. On June 10, 1946, Johnson died in a car crash on U.S. Highway 1 near Raleigh, North Carolina. After racing angrily from a diner that refused him service. Johnson was 68 years old at the time of his death. He was buried next to Etta Duryea Johnson at Graceland Cemetery in Chicago. In the years after Johnson's death, his reputation was gradually rehabilitated. Mike Tyson, Harry Reid, and John McCain and others have all lent their support to getting a pardon for the boxing champion. Now, Johnson's criminal record is regarded as more a product of racially motivated acts than as a reflection of actual wrongdoing. In 1954, Johnson was inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame. In 2005, the film of the Johnson-Jeffries fight was deemed historically significant, and it was put in the National Film Registry. The 1970 movie The Great White Hope, starring James Earl Jones as Johnson and Jane Alexander as his love interest, was based on the life of John Johnson. In 2012, the city of Galveston dedicated a park in Johnson's memory. The park includes a life-size bronze statue of Johnson.